Hello, viewers. Welcome back to my channel. This is John from Cloud Tech Inside. In this session, we will be talking about why to use AWS Strands and how to use it. I'm kickstarting a learning series based on the open source library published by AWS and now has contributors from Accenture, Anthropic, and many other companies contributing to the same library. The biggest question is, why now AWS Strands? You might be tired looking at different open source frameworks available in the market and confused on which to use and when to use. And this is where AWS Strand open source library stands out. For example, if you are coding with any other open source, you have to choreograph the agentic functions, the interaction with the tools. You have to choreograph each and every step in the programming language. But when it comes to AWS Strands, it's a model-driven approach. You let the model decide how to choreograph your workflow. All you provide to the agent strands is the name of the model, the tools that it has to use, and it decides when to use that tool and how to use that tool. To put it simple, we can say other frameworks apart from AWS Strand act like a project manager, where the direction is given from the CEO and the project manager executes step by step, talking to each and every developers, team members, the business analysts, etc., in order to achieve the application development. But with AWS Strands, you are the CEO or the CTO who gives the directions to an agent, directions to the agent and the tools, and agent does the rest for you. So that's called the model-first approach or a model-driven approach to agentic AI, which is gaining traction with many companies using AWS and Amazon Bedrock. With that said, I want to give you a quick introduction on how the agentic AI workloads can be developed using AWS Strands. A few lines of AWS Strands code, and you will be able to deploy your first agent in no time. So before we move on to the AWS Strands demo, I just want to let you know that I have released a course on Amazon S3 tables on udemy.com. I'm going to leave the link below in the description. This course is good for the beginners and intermediate data engineers who are interested in building a high-performant AWS data lake on S3 table. And this is a clear extension of Sagemaker Unified Studio. So anybody who completed my course on Sagemaker Unified Studio can look into this course. It's called Amazon S3 Table Learning Series. With that said, let's get back to the demo. An open source library called Strand Agents, and there are a couple of samples underneath it. So you can clone this library and start playing with it. And this is where some of the examples of how to create your first agent all the way to creating a complex demo with all the AWS services is included. So make sure that you clone this library to your notebook or Visual Studio Code. And most of the code samples are in the form of a notebook. So it's ideal that you use a notebook or a JupyterLab notebook from SageMaker Unified Studio. Either way, you want to make sure the corresponding role has access to invoke the LLM, and the LLM is also provisioned to be accessed by the corresponding role. So like I said, you can use Visual Studio Code connected to AWS console, as well as you can use JupyterLab notebook on SageMaker Unified Studio to run some of these examples. And one of the prerequisites is having Python 3.10 and above. Make sure that you have Python 3.10 installed in your environment. Let it be Visual Studio Code or Unified Studio already comes with 3.10 and above. So you want to make sure you have the latest version of Python before moving to AWS Strand examples. So in this example, I'm going to be using the Unified Studio. I created a project called AWS Strands. Within the project, I'm going to open the JupyterLab notebook. And what I do, the very step I want to do is clone the repository. So git clone the repository to the local notebook, and I will leave the repository link in the YouTube description. And once it's cloned, you can see the samples being replicated here. You can go to tutorial and open up the first agent here, right here. Open up the first agent, and the first step is to install the Strand agent tools. Like I said, this installation will only happen if it's Python 3.10 and above. And once you install, the very first agent that we are creating is a very simple basic agent where we are creating an agent with a Bedrock model. and make sure that the user that is specific to this SageMaker Unified Studio has the access to invoke the LLM. And the user can be found in the projects console, where you can go to the projects, create an AWS Strands, and you want to make sure this particular project role ARN is accessible by Amazon Bedrock and has the capability to invoke the model, as well as the model should also be whitelisted or allowed to be accessed using the Bedrock console. So once that is done, it hits the Bedrock LLM, gets back with the answer, and the user gets the response. So very simple here. So basically you import the strands, the agent framework, and then simply provide the model name. You have to provide the exact model ID so that it can invoke the model. So here I'm using Claude 3.7. I would highly recommend using something very lightweight for this examples. These invocations will cost you high when you're using the bigger models. And the system prompt is giving the context on what more the agent should respond. And it says it's a helpful assistant that provides concise responses. And we are asking the agent to tell me a joke. So just execute this, and there you go. So what it did is created an agent that could interact with the LLM models in Amazon Bedrock and then get you the response. So this is the most simple way to interact with the model. And within few lines of code, you're able to initiate an agent and get the response that you're looking for. So this is a very simple form. It sounds like just a simple model interaction, but as you progress in the tutorial, you will see how the agents can use external tools and interact with the tools, get the response, and make a decision on its own. So in the next example, we are adding few tools to it. We are adding a simple tool called Get Weather, something very simple, and a calculator tool. And you can add these tools to the code, and then agent can decide which tool to use and when to use. That's the beauty of model-driven approach. Let me repeat that again. This is the model-driven approach. You don't tell the agent what to use. The agent decides which model to pick up or which tools to pick up and access the model and make a decision. So it's completely a model-driven approach compared to other open source framework, which you have to specify some of these tasks clearly on when asked to access the Get Weather, when asked about calculator, you access the calculator. You don't have to do that orchestration in AWS Strands. It is a model driven, the model decides. The Strand agent invokes the model and the model decides to use Get Weather or calculator for giving the corresponding response. So here, the same thing, I'm importing the agent and the tool. So this is the second part where we are importing the tool method from the Strands class, and within the Strands tools, we are importing the calculator. So I'm defining a simple function called weather, and it says get weather, and it returns simply sunny by default. So just to show how it works, and you put a Python decorator called a tool right above the method, and then create an instance of agent by invoking the agent method and provide the model ID, and then in the second line you provide the tools that's available. So AWS Strands comes with some default tools, but you can also create your custom tools and add to the set. So basically you're providing that this agent has access to calculator and weather tool, and it also has access to the Anthropic Claude 3.7 model as well. And all you have to give is the system prompt, which says you can do a simple math calculation and tell weather. It just gives the possibility to the agent, but it doesn't specify when to use what tool. So basically you are asking, the first question is, what is the weather today? So it should automatically understand which function to invoke it or which tool to invoke based on your question. So that's where the model driven approach. And if you look at the lines of code, it's very simple. In few lines of code, you're able to start playing with the tools, and you can also build your custom tools. Like the weather is a custom tool, and then you can also import the tools from Strand tools library, etc. So I'm just going to execute this, and let's see what the response is. See, it's giving you a detailed information. It says, I'm going to check the current weather. Let me fetch that information for you. It gives you what tool it's going to use, and it gives you the response saying it's sunny today, because that's what this weather tool provides the information. You can also ask saying, what is 1 + 1? And let's see what the response is. Look at that. So for any kind of arithmetic calculation, it used the tool calculator, which is imported from Strand tools. So quickly going to the open source library, I want to show you what the Strand agent and the different tools that it has. So I'm at the GitHub location. I'm going to click on Strand tools, and this is the class where all these methods are defined. And you can see there are A2A client, agent core memory, batch, calculator, current time, diagram, environment. Some of these libraries are already listed here, and these tools are available for use in your development. So as the AWS Strand usage progresses, people will start adding all these tools and makes it much easier to interact with different websites, different applications, etc. So this is the simple example on how the model-driven approach works. And you, like I said, you can always pick a different model, change the model here, and add more tools here, and the model decides on which tool to use and when to use and get the response. And alternatively, you can also directly invoke the tool. You don't have to make the model decide, but there are a couple of options where you can directly invoke some of these calculated options. And I also want to say that you can also have a detailed logging. All you have to do is import the logging library and import the agent. And then when you define the log, you can say strands, and then in the debug mode, it gives you a detailed information on what is happening behind the scenes. So in this example, it will tell you what is the context being sent, the total number of tokens, the input token. All the information will be provided as long as you can provide this logging library and in the debug mode. And or you can switch to info mode where it gives more of an information style. It's very simple, it's very concise when it comes to the information style. And error mode, it only throws if there is an error. So it has a detailed log. It shows you how it is being executed. And if you look at the previous log right here, it also tells you what tools that it is using in order to get the response that you are looking for. So it has a detailed logging capabilities. It has few lines of code and immediately start up an agent, and some of the tools are inbuilt, and you can also define some of the tools for your internal applications and then start using this. And to move on to the more customized version, you can pick and choose the different models. Like I said before, as long as you have the model ID right, you can pick and choose the model, and also you can clearly define what region the model should be. So you can have a Claude 3.5 Haiku and then say, I want to pick it up from model US West 2 region and then temperature. So you can have a more of a customized option, different models, and you can use the strands.models and import the Bedrock model framework or the method, and then create an instance of Bedrock model where you can specify the model ID, region, and temperature, and be very specific and custom here, and then create an agent. Then all you have to do is agent and then model equal to Bedrock model, which is already defined here. With that, we have now an agent with Anthropic Claude Haiku and in the US West region, provided you have access to this model. That's the important thing. If you're playing with the US East one, then you may or may not have access to the model in the US West location. Again, these are different way to go, and there is an option where you can also build external tools, which means you can build a tool to search the web, get the answers back, and then make a decision on top of it. So this is an example where it's using the DuckDuckGo API, where the agent recipe bot agent has a tool called web search, and web search uses the DuckDuckGo API. And then once the response is received, it uses the Bedrock LLM to make a decision. So this is very simple, and you can create your first web search agent using AWS Strands. So you have to install the prerequisite. All the information will be provided in the description below. And then it defines a web search agent where it calls the DuckDuckGo library and says the region. All the information is provided right here. And once the response is fetched, it returns back the response or an error message back to the agent. So now we create the recipe agent, and it's made of Sonnet 3.7. We are giving the context here, saying that you help users find the ingredients on cooking. Use the web search tool to find the recipes when user mentions ingredient or cook up information. And you provide the tools called web search, which is defined right here. And always make sure that Python decorator is mentioned right above the custom tools that you develop. And once that is developed, agent has all the information that it needs, all the tools that it needs, and all the APIs that it can connect to. And depends upon time it takes to search. It knows what tools to use. It picks up the DuckDuckGo API, runs a search, gets back the search, and then runs it against the Amazon LLM and get you the response. So this is how you can quickly create an agent with the right tools so that you can start building your own applications for your organization or for your personal needs. With that said, I'm wrapping up the session. In the next few sessions, I'll be talking about AWS Strands and other applications within it, like how it can access other agents, how it can access open source framework, how it can access AWS tools within the ecosystem. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for your latest information. Signing off, John.